Welcome to the show, guys. Joseph Robert Camo, the fantasy football counselor. In this episode, we're talking about the top 10 players to avoid for fantasy football 2022. A big episode, and these are big names. These are not just small names to avoid. There's obvious people you want to avoid. The Peyton Barbers, the Devontae Bookers, all those guys that suck. All the guys that have had years to wow us, we're not wowed. We know to avoid those guys, but today we want to focus on big names to avoid and why to avoid them. Big names like Davante Adams. Why would we avoid Davante Adams and Tyreek Hill? We're going to talk about it. This is a very important show because this can make or break your fantasy football season. So tune in, buckle up, grab a drink, coffee, tea, whatever it is you guys like on your drive, on your commute. I'm going to dive into this for you. Now, before I do, the show is brought to you by pristineauction.com. Pull over right now or go to your browser, go to pristineauction.com, enter the code SWAGLION. Okay, go do that. I'll enter you for all swag draws moving forward. Free giveaways. Yes, signed jerseys, signed t-shirts, signed helmets, signed footballs, everything, guys. Compliments of Pristine Auction. To enter, it's free to enter. Head on over to pristineauction.com. Use code SWAGLINE and you're entered. Okay, guys? Very, very simple. Go do that. If you are new to the channel, make sure you guys hit the thumbs up. Very easy, right down below. And comment below. Let me know who you're avoiding for fantasy football 2022. I can't believe we're here. We're in the offseason. I'm getting you guys ramped up. But again, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. It's very, very important. All right, let's dive in. First person you're going to avoid. I've been avoiding him for years. I'm going to dive into why I'm avoiding him. It's not just like, hey, I'm going to avoid this guy. And I'm going to tell you guys why. First guy is Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook must be avoided at all costs. This is a guy that was Sheep's consensus, fantasy football rankings consensus, top 5 last year. Top 3, actually. Everyone said, draft Dalvin Cook. What I say? I said avoid Dalvin Cook. Why? Many reasons. The guy doesn't finish seasons, period. That's it. That's all you need to know. Hasn't finished a season in his entire career. I'm going to pull it up here. The guy has played since 2017, played 5 seasons. Has not finished one. 4 games, season 1, 11 games, 14 games, 14 games. And the past season, in 2021, he played 13 games. That's Dalvin Cook for you. This was a guy, again, top 3 to 5 pick across the board on the consensus rankings in 2021 rankings. Looking at 2022, I'm looking at it. The consensus still have this guy ranked pretty high in their rankings. They got him sitting right now, top 3. That is absolutely ludicrous. The guy finished, just to put it in perspective for you, finished 15th in standard leagues last year. In PPR last year, Dalvin Cook finished 16th amongst running backs in PPR fantasy numbers with 206.3 PPR fantasy points. That's 249 attempts, 1,159 rushing yards, 4.7 yards per carry, and 6 total touchdowns. And he did not, I repeat, he did not get any receiving touchdowns. He did not live up to the hype and the expectations. And as I said before, and I said prior, did not finish the season. And for the fact that he didn't finish the season, busted based on last year's ADP significantly busted, I'm going to be staying away from Dalvin Cook completely. I will not be drafting him. He is a fantasy football player you must avoid this season, all right? Let's move on to the second player here that you must avoid. Another popular name that I avoided last year, and for good reason, because he also busted at his average draft position. The guy I'm talking about is Nick Chubb. Looking at his PPR numbers, finished 13th amongst running backs, also busting based on ADP. And people thought I was absolutely crazy when I said that Najee Harris will finish ahead of Nick Chubb and Dalvin Cook. People said, you're crazy. I even said Najee Harris would beat CMC, Christian McCaffrey, in fantasy points. And sure enough, he did. So Nick Chubb, another guy I'm going to avoid this season, simply predicated on the fact that he also doesn't finish seasons very well. He had 228 attempts, 8 touchdowns on the ground, only 14 games, and he always shares the backfield with Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt always, and he had an injury this year, but always tends to finish better in PPR. So that offense is always suspect. Odell Beckham Jr. is gone. We don't know if Baker Mayfield's a solution there. I'm just going to dodge Nick Chubb because he's always part of a committee and he's a pure runner. He's not really a pass-catching running back at all. So when I'm drafting a guy relatively early, I want a guy that's going to do it all. Now, currently, Nick Chubb is sitting on the consensus rankings top 10 in standard and around 12th amongst running backs. As it sits right now, first quarter 2022, sitting 12th amongst running backs on the consensus rankings. I'm going to stay away from him completely. Nick Chubb is the second player to avoid. Number 3, this comes as a shocker here, but I'm going to dodge Cooper Kupp. Now, Cooper Kupp, oh, what a coincidence. Cooper Kupp is now currently sitting number 1 wide receiver off the board on the consensus. Where was he last year? I'll tell you where he was on the consensus rankings. he was actually sitting outside the top 15. The mainstream consensus, the magazines, the outdated rankings, the consensus rankings, all the podcasts had Cooper Kupp behind Robert Woods in the rankings. All of a sudden, now they're riding him. That is total BS. I'm going to avoid Cooper Kupp like the plague for many reasons. He had an absolute pinnacle year. There's no way he's going to repeat these numbers. Not even Antonio Brown in his prime, in one of his best years in 2015, couldn't duplicate these numbers 2 years in a row. Cooper Kupp in 2021 had 191 targets, which is crazy. 145 receptions, 1,947 receiving yards, 16 touchdowns, 439.5 PPR fantasy points. That is phenomenal. For Cooper Kupp to repeat that, it would be an absolute miracle for him to repeat that. Now, a lot of people say, well, Joe, he's going to decline, and, he's still going to have a good season. Yeah, he could. He could very well have a good season coming into 2022. Very well possible. But you got to consider the fact that the guy is going to be 29 years old. The guy is going to enter his 6th season. The guy's finished, one, maybe 2 healthy seasons pretty much his entire career. He had the one injury in 2018 where he played 8 games, but he's actually been relatively healthy, okay? And then you've got Odell Beckham Jr. there. You've got other targets. You got to understand that things change every single year. And to put him first overall because he finished first overall is absolutely ludicrous because we know history shows us every single year that it doesn't work like that. So I'm going to be dodging Cooper Kupp simply for the fact that a decline is happening. We don't know the extent of the decline, but a decline is definitely happening. And we saw this with Michael Thomas that year, a couple of years ago. Michael Thomas, he had the phenomenal year. Then he regressed the year after, got hurt. Now, an injury could happen to Cooper Kupp. That tends to happen with people that have pinnacle years due to the fact that they've had such a Cinderella year, and then, they see all these targets, and then it's inevitable that they're either going to hurt or a decline is going to happen. So if you want Cooper Kupp, you're going to have to spend an early draft capital on him, which I'm not going to do, knowing that someone else is going to take that spot like we see every single year. So the mainstream are going to put him on top for obvious reasons, like they do every year, and you got to catch on to this pattern, and it's total BS, and I'm going to dodge him because I'm not paying early draft capital. Now, I got him in the 4th round last year because I knew where to get him, and that's why the 16-round draft solution tells you where to draft players for optimal return on investment. And with wide receiver, there's a ton of value. You don't have to spend early draft capital on a wide receiver. We saw the regression last year with DeAndre Hopkins and other wide receivers. Early on, they were drafted and busted. This happens every single year. So Cooper Kupp is a guy I will avoid at all costs. I liked him last year in the 4th to 5th round. Will not be paying this price. I liked him when the sheep had Robert Woods ahead of him. All of them had Robert Woods ahead of him in the rankings. I liked it. I stole Cooper Kupp in all drafts. And I told you guys to get him. Now, if you haven't got the 16-round draft solution, head on over to thefantasyfootballaccounts.com. Scoop it up. This will help you guys crush your leagues. It is a video training with optimal cheat sheet in there, giving you all the optimal players drafted each round, sleepers, breakouts, everything you need. 16 rounds. Just Google it or link here below if you're watching on YouTube or check out the website. All right? So that's the third guy. Going to avoid him. Number 4 here, Mark Andrews. Another guy coming off a pinnacle year. Well, Joe, you're crazy. How could you tell me to avoid Mark Andrews coming off a pinnacle year? He's phenomenal. You're telling me, Joe, to avoid all of the top players from every position. This is absolutely ludicrous. You're telling me opposite of everything that the mainstream are telling me. Well, yes, I am. Mark Andrews had a pinnacle year, 301 fantasy points. Now you're saying, well, Joe, he had good years before. Not to this extent. 107. Let me repeat this. 107 receptions, 154 targets, 9 touchdowns. Okay? That was phenomenal. And I'm going to tell you guys why he had this type of year, okay? When you're looking at Mark Andrews, you got to look at the quarterback throwing to him. And the quarterback that was throwing to him near the end of the year where Mark Andrews saw an increase in volume was Tyler Huntley near the end of the season, who played 7 games, 6 of which he really got going and started getting those attempts up to and the targets up to Mark Andrews. So Tyler Huntley really favored Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews saw a major increase in volume for targets. I think that was a big part to Mark Andrews' success. And again, saw an all-time high across every level. And the thing about it is he's going to be drafted very high in drafts, period. And I'm not going to invest that type of capital on a tight end, never mind a guy coming off a pinnacle year. So I'm going to be not drafting Mark Andrews this year. Going to be looking for value at tight ends later on as well. Well, Joe, who are you drafting? You're avoiding all these top guys. Who are you drafting? 16-round draft solution explains it. Also, this channel, if you absorb all the content, you will learn, you will dominate. So make sure you guys do subscribe, okay? And I go Robust RB. So that's the answer to that. Number 5 here, another guy I'm avoiding is Kyler Murray. At the time of this recording, Kyler Murray is a guy that I will be dodging simply for the fact that looking at his numbers in 2021, amongst other quarterbacks, he finished 10th amongst quarterbacks, 24 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, played 14 games, had a little bit of an injury there, was looking good at the beginning of the season, had a bit of a decline. And understand, guys, with Kyler Murray, he was on a pinnacle team here in regards to targets. He had a ton of targets. Even though Hopkins was banged up, stuff like that, he still had good targets. And the fact of the matter is, at time of his recording, he actually went and deleted all of his Arizona Cardinals pictures off his Instagram, on his social media. So my concern here is he going to be on the Cardinals? Where is he going to be? Could he end up on the Packers if Aaron Rodgers gets traded? We don't know. Maybe the Texans? We don't know at the time of this recording. At the time of this recording, if you're listening to this pre-draft, maybe it's September, August, you catch this video, maybe he's on a good team. Maybe he thrives on that team. I don't know. But I still don't trust Kyler Murray. I still think there's other safer quarterbacks to be drafting other than Kyler Murray. I'm going to be staying away from him for the reason that there's a lot of uncertainty, the fact that he's a diva. He actually ended up blocking me on Instagram as well a couple years ago when he was talking crap about fantasy football, and I stuck up for the fantasy football community. He was talking crap. Anyway, long story short, he's a diva. I'm going to avoid him. And even with a high-octane potential offense and good receivers, he still didn't do phenomenal on the Arizona Cardinals, finishing 10th amongst quarterbacks. And you're saying, well, Joe, that's good. Yeah, but you want to know something? When you look at the rankings and where the consensus have him, he's going to be a top 3 quarterback on the consensus rankings. So they're going to, you're going to have to spend early draft capital to get him. And I'm not going to do that with Kyler Murray, okay? Coming at number 6, Alvin Kamara. Now, you're going to say, well, Joe, Alvin Kamara is a great player. Why would you avoid him? Well, the decline was definitely happening with Drew Brees being gone. A regression in receptions. He was at 47 receptions in 2021, played 13 games, didn't play the full season. And at the time of this recording, recently he was arrested for a battery assault charge at a nightclub after the Pro Bowl. So maybe things change. Maybe he gets his head together. Maybe everything clears up and he does really well after this alleged assault or whatever happened here. And I heard it was pretty brutal from what him and his friends did. Apparently, I don't know the whole story, but from my understanding, this one guy called them ugly, and then Alvin Kamara flipped out, and they assaulted this guy. So not cool, not a good look for a guy that I didn't anticipate this from at all. And if off-field issues continue to happen, that's a big problem for me as a fantasy manager who wants the best of the best on the field. I want the Derrick Henrys of the world. I want the guys that put their head down and work, Justin Herberts. I want the guys that have the good work ethic. Alvin Kamara, the outfield issue kind of concerns me, not to mention the regression when you're looking at numbers, receptions, and Drew Brees being gone now. Who's throwing the ball there? Are the receptions going to be there for Alvin Kamara? That's a big question mark. So I'm going to be dodging him as well at the running back position, all right? Number 7 here, Zeke Elliott. Now, Zeke Elliott still could have a couple years ahead of him. Now, one thing you got to notice was Ezekiel Elliott here is the regression over the past 3 years. 2019, 301 attempts. 2020, 244 attempts. 2021, only 237 attempts. 1,002 rushing yards, 4.2 yards per carry, and 10 touchdowns. Now, that's not bad, okay, when you look at Ezekiel Elliott. But this is a guy that was a 304 attempt type of running back. And I don't like the regression. I don't like the fact that they're integrating Tony Pollard a lot more. Again, at this time of this recording, we don't know what could happen. Maybe Zeke Elliott's on a different team. We don't know. But I will tell you this. I don't like the regression I've been seeing over the past couple of years. And I still got to invest a top draft capital in him, and I'm not going to do that. So Zeke Elliott, regression, I'm seeing it, statistically and historically declining. And I think he's kind of getting into the decline part of his year. Could have one more boom year, but I've seen what I need to see out of Zeke Elliott, and that is safe numbers every single year. When I draft a running back, especially early, I'm going for upside. I'm going for a ton of volume, and I don't like the way it's looking for Zeke Elliott the past couple of years. And I don't want to play it safe in the early rounds. I want to get a guy that's going to hit me home runs and get me the volume, a lot of it, in the first round when I'm drafting somebody. So Zeke Elliott, super safe, regression, and that's enough reason for me to be avoiding him this upcoming season. Coming at number 8, again, you're like, Joe, man, these are big names. I can't believe you're avoiding him. But Travis Kelce. Now, here's the deal with Travis Kelce. One of, if not the most safest players to draft in fantasy football, without a doubt. But when you look at Travis Kelce, you got to look at, man, this guy has been picture perfect for years upon years. I mean, this guy's had phenomenal numbers dating back to, I would say, even 2016. He's been consistent every single year. Literally has pretty much not missed a game. I mean, he's played almost every game. He's missed like 2 or 3 games in like 5 or 6 seasons, which is phenomenal. I mean, going back to 2014, he's played pretty much every game. So consistent, solid, strong, durable. Why am I not drafting him? Simply for the fact that a decline is definitely due. I know you're saying, Joe, that's crazy. he's due. It's got to happen at some point. He's been almost too perfect. That's going to happen. An injury could happen. That's number one. Number two, the fact of the matter is I'm not investing an early draft pick on Travis Kelce very early, and that's what you're going to do if you're going to draft him. Again, I'm loading up on running backs early where he's coming off, and that's reason enough alone to stay away from Travis Kelce. I'm going to stay away from him. I can get value at tight ends later, and I can get a guy that's got a ton of ceiling that can come close in regards to fantasy points to Travis Kelce without paying that price, okay? To put it in perspective, back in 2021, Dalton Schultz, pretty much undrafted, late round pick, finished with 208 fantasy points compared to 262 points that Travis Kelce had, and you pretty much got Dalton Schultz for free and didn't have to pay the second round draft capital. So load up on a couple tight ends with upside, mid to late rounds. You'll be good at that tight end position. As long as you get 10 points out of a game, out of your tight end, I'm good. I'm going to be dodging Travis Kelce because I never invest early in tight ends anyway. People did it last year with George Kittle. The return on investment wasn't that good for George Kittle, as he missed a couple of games, was very volatile in a couple of games. Even though Kittle finished fourth amongst tight ends, still, I wasn't going to spend the early draft capital on him. Kind of busted based on his ADP. And again, I don't spend early draft capital on tight ends. So Travis Kelce is the guy I'm dodging. Number 9 here, I'm going to say Tyreek Hill. Again, very volatile from a game-to-game basis. I've said this before with Tyreek Hill. The thing about it is he always finishes in the top 10 when he's healthy, played all the games. Tyreek Hill finished 6th amongst wide receivers last year, 296 points. But the problem is very volatile game in, game out, and he's going to give you a bunch of dud games, and that's the issue. When I pull up his PPR numbers, I took a look at it. I mean, in week 2, 5.9 points. In week 3, 9.7 points. Really, really unacceptable. 7.3 points in week 9. 4.2 points in week 13, 3.9 points in week 16. So a bunch of dud type of games. But when you look at his overall numbers, he has a bunch of boom games that kind of overinflate his numbers. If you look at week 15 in 2021, 32.8 points PPR. So he gets a bunch of big games that inflate his overall numbers. But I don't like that volatility, especially if I'm investing a guy in the first round. And he's going to be going there. When I look at wide receiver consensus rankings right now, Tyreek Hill sitting top 5. And again, I'm not investing that early in a guy that I can get. I get a wide receiver later and get that good value. Last year, I had Jamar Chase later, finished top 4. I had Cooper Kupp 4th round, finished in the top there. I suggested Amon-Ra St. Brown. He finished near the top as well. So you can wait on wide receiver and get good value without investing early on a guy like Tyreek Hill, who is extremely volatile. So I'm going to be dodging him as well. And the last one here, this is going to come as a shocker here, and before I say this last name, make sure you guys do subscribe and get that 60-round draft solution. And the guy I'm talking about here is Davante Adams. Davante Adams, listen, here's the deal with Davante Adams. I don't know what's going on with the quarterback situation, whether Aaron Rodgers comes back or not. At the end of the day, Davante Adams, again, very pinnacle type player, hit his ceiling. Regression is imminent. And the fact of the matter is he's been almost picture perfect the past couple of years, minus missing a couple of games here and there. And again, we don't know the situation with that offense. Is Aaron Rodgers coming out strong? Is that connection going to be solidified? What's going on with this offense? If he stays on the field, obviously he's going to be solid and durable. But again, very early, high draft capital on him. And again, regression is imminent. There is a ton of wide receivers you can get later that could surpass Davante Adams, Tyreek Hill, and Cooper Kupp this year, and probably will. And you're going to be loaded up with those guys after you got your running backs. That's exactly what I explained in the 16-round draft solution. Let someone else take these guys. They may do well again, and that's fine, but I'm not investing in them. Last year, perfect example, let me give you another one. Deebo Samuel. Got him for value. People are drafting Ayuk ahead of him, right? Deebo Samuel finished near the top. You can get a lot of value at wide receiver. Jamar Chase, pretty much undrafted or was drafted super late. Finished top 5 amongst wide receivers, right? Deontay Johnson was a 4th to 5th round pick, finished top 10. Hunter Renfrow, literally either undrafted or a super late round pick, finished top 10. Jalen Waddle, pretty much undrafted, 60th on the consensus rankings, plus 60th, 70th amongst rankings, finished top 13. So there's a ton of value at wide receiver. You don't need to invest in guys that could be due for a decline after having some picture-perfect years, okay? So Adams, another guy I'm not investing early, and a player I will be avoiding. Okay, guys? So that's my top 10 players to avoid first quarter 2022. Diving in here for you. Make sure you guys do subscribe because I will be talking about sleepers, breakouts, everything you need to get you guys prepared for Fantasy Football 2022. Subscribe and get the 16-round draft solution. Linked it below, or head on over to thefantasyfootballcounts.com. I appreciate you guys. Think smart, think outside the box, and don't follow the consensus rankings. You'll be light years ahead of them. I'm out.